Changes in software is very quite common to all of us. We know that changes may happen to requirements, changes may happen to design, changes may happen to even implementation or code. Okay. So changes are the most unavoidable things in software engineering. Okay. So changes cannot be avoided. If it is a software engineering, it's a software, definitely we can expect changes to occur in each and every part of our life. So changes in software engineering and changes in software are going to occur time by time. Every day we may be having changes, and these changes may be requested by a customer. If at all, if a customer is going to request for changes, definitely we have to obey whatever the customer says. Why? Because we are customer centric. Ultimately, our most highest priority will be given to the customer only. Okay. So today we are going to see about such concept which is going to welcome changes that are coming from the customers. Hi. I am KVSS Ramakrishna, working as assistant professor in the department of CSE, Vignyas Nirula. Now, we are going to see about the unit 2 concepts in today class. Now, these are the syllabus contents: the agility and agile and cost of change, agile process, extreme programming. We say that it is in shortcut way, we say that it is XP, other agile process models. Here we are going to see about various agile process models, right from starting from Crystal model, adaptive software development model, and Scrum model, dynamic system development methodology. Like that, we are going to cover a lot of several models that are supporting agile approaches. After that, we are going to have a tool set for agile process, and then software engineering knowledge, core principles, and principles that guide each and every framework activity, requirement engineering, establishing the groundwork, eliciting requirements, developing use cases, building the requirements model, negotiating the requirements, validating the requirements. This is about the syllabus of our JNTU. Now we are going to see, first of all, what do you mean by agility and what do you mean by an agile. Already I told you that welcoming changes is the most essential part of our software. So in software, it is quite common to say changes may occur from time to time. So you need to cope up with the changes. You need to accept the changes that are requesting from the customer. A customer always going to request for changes. As a software engineer, you need to accommodate those changes in your code, and as well as you need to accommodate those changes in your design, etc. Now we are going to see about the manifesto for agile software development. Now what do you mean by manifesto? Let me give you an example. Nowadays, each and every political party is going to have its own manifesto before going to elections. What do you mean by that? What are the things that can be done by a party, maybe a political party, in the coming 5 years if you give them power, and that is listed out in the form of a brochure, and that is what is called as a manifesto. That whatever the promises that they are going to keep it, and they are going to keep it in the form of a manifesto. That's what is called as a manifesto. Now what we uncover here, we are going to uncover better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. So better way of developing software, how you can find the software to be more prompt one, more promising one. With respect to quality also, how you are going to give the promise, that assurance to the customer that my software, whatever I am going to build it for you, is quality wise, it is very good. How you are going to give that promise? So there should be certain new techniques and new technologies that should be adopted in order to give promises to the customers, isn't it? Now, through this work, we have to come to value. Okay, finally, we are going to give a value to the customer. Okay, that is about this one. Now, what do you mean by agility? See, always I told you, previously I told you, agility means welcoming new changes. See, it is quite common to see changes in the requirements from the customer. So, customer from day to day life, he is going to come up with certain new changes. Now, you need to welcome such new changes or requirements that are coming from the customer. Now, agility means, see, whenever a change occurs, whether it is a change with respect to a requirement, or whether it is a change with respect to a design, or with respect to a development, you need to welcome those changes. Now, we can say that agility is an effective, rapid and adaptive response to changes. So, response to changes, whenever you make any change in either requirement or in design or in coding, there should be rapid response to the changes that are being made. Now here agility means it is rapid and adaptive. What do you mean by adaptive? Adaptive means a dynamic. So whenever a change happens either in requirement or in design or in coding, there will be a team that is going to immediately respond to those changes, and that team is called as an agile team. The other word that what we can use for agile team is nimble. An agile team can also be say that it is a nimble. Nimble means it is very fast in action and very quick in response to the changes that might have occurred either in design, either in requirements or in construction. So whenever there is a change, this team is going to respond in a very quick fashion. Now, effective communication among the stakeholders. Almost all we are going to have 9 types of stakeholders, maybe internal customers, external customers, software engineers, they may be product engineers, they may be support and maintenance engineers, etc., etc. Now, there should be effective communication with those customers, that what we are going to have. These are called as customers, we can call them as stakeholders. Now we are going to have the drawing the customer onto the team. We are going to draw the customer onto the team. One of the agile beautiful thing about agile approaches is we think that we treat that customer is a part and parcel of our team. We don't consider that customer is some external person. In fact, we always assume that customer is part of our team. So we are going to have a direct communication with the customer. Why? Because we are going to assume that customer is the part of the team. That is what is the beautiful thing about the agility. Now drawing the customer onto the team means we are going to treat the customer as a part of the team. Now we are going to organize the team so that it is in control of the work performed. So we are going to organize the team in such a way that we can do the work in a controlled fashion. Now we are going to yield. What is the final thing? What we are going to say is, see, agility means always rapid incremental delivery of software. You are going to deliver the software in much more faster way. In a quicker way, you are going to deliver the software. Now we are going to see about agility and the cost of change. Now, non-linear increase. What do you mean by that? See, whatever the traditional models what we have seen so far, it may be a waterfall model, or it may be a spiral model, or it may be a prototype model, or whatever it may be. It may be an incremental model. All these models, evolutionary model, all these models are the examples of traditional models only. So the main difference between the traditional models and this agility based models is that, see, in traditional models, whenever a requirement occurs, if you want to adopt that requirement that is coming from the customer, if you want to incorporate it within the current project, it will take a lot of time to do that, and cost will be increasing in a linear fashion and non-linear fashions. Now here non-linear increase means in order to cut down that cost, the traditional approaches will fail, and the budget and as well as with respect to time, the traditional approaches means the models which are using the traditional and classical life cycle models examples, waterfall, spiral, they will fail, where the agility model is going to get succeed. So why? Because agility model will never squeeze the requirements. It is going to wait for the requirements that may come up or that may find up from the customer at any point of time. Now we are going to have the conventional wisdom in software development. See, by decades of the software evolution, we have used the traditional models only. Here the cost of change actually increases non-linearly whenever you are going to adopt the traditional models. So non-linearly the cost may increase whenever you are going to develop a software project with the help of orthodox models or classical life cycle models like waterfall, prototype model, spiral model, incremental model, concurrent model, etc., etc. But agility is not going to increase the cost in non-linear fashion. See, the proponents means what? Who are going to defend the agility approaches? They argue that a well-designed agile process actually flattens the curve. Means the increase in cost may not happen in non-linear way. In fact, it is going to flatten the curve if you follow the agile approach. That is the defenders of agile process or models are going to say. This is the graph that what you are going to see it. This is a graph you are going to see it. On the x-axis, you are going to have the development schedule progress, and on the on the y-axis, you are going to have the development cost. So if you are seeing it in the diagram, the x-axis, on the x-axis we have taken the development schedule progress, and on the y-axis we have taken the development cost. So this is way how the graph occurs. Now the traditional life cycle models, if you observe in the traditional life cycle models, yeah, this is the model that what we are going to talk about. See, here if you observe, development schedule progress is taken on the x-axis. Just I am pointing out the light on this one. So we can, development schedule progress is taken on x-axis, whereas the development cost is taken on the y-axis. Yes or no? Now what if you follow the traditional life cycle models, now the curve will appear like this. This is what is called as a non-linear curve. So if you apply the waterfall model or spiral model or any prototype model or any type of models, if you develop a software, whenever a changes happens, whenever a change is going to occur, the cost will be in the non-linear fashion. This is what is called as a cost of change using conventional software process, and this curve is going to increase in non-linear way. Whereas if you follow the agile approach, so this is the agile actual curve. This curve is called as a agile actual curve, cost of change using the agile process. If you adopt this agile process, which is saying that welcoming changes to the customer requirements is the most essential thing. At any point of time we are going to welcome the changes. Now this is the actual curve of this this agile process. If you are seeing, this is the second curve you are seeing, and this is the actual curve. Okay, now what is the expected curve? Expected curve is entirely different from the actual curve. This is the third one. This is the dashed line you are going to represent with the help of, this is what is called as an expected curve or idealized curve. But in actually the agile is going to affect the cost in a non-linear fashion. This is a non-linear fashion of classical life cycle model. This is a linear fashion of the agile process models. Means what? Agile process models are far more superior to the orthodox models. Okay, I think you understand this. Now we are going to see about an agile process. See, this agile process is driven by the customer descriptions of what is required. Means what is required by the customers. See, this is what is called as a scenario. For example, the examples for scenarios is login is a scenario, logout is a scenario. Everything will be treated in the form of a scenarios in case of agile based development. Now we are going to recognize all the plans are short-lived. Why? Because whatever the requirements that we are having today, that might not be the same requirements that we see it tomorrow. Tomorrow the entire requirement scenario might get changed. So that's what is a dynamic nature of software. So in order to incorporate that, we need to use only agile technologies and agile models only, agile models only. Do you get it? So recognizing the plans are only short-lived. That's what is meant. So developing the software literally with a heavy emphasis on construction activities. What do you mean by that? See, you need to develop the software in an iterative fashion. Iterative, you know what you mean by iterations. Doing the same thing again and again is called as an iteration. Now we are going to develop the software in terms of iterations only with a heavy emphasis. Emphasis means focus on the coding or construction activities. Now we are going to deliver in agile methodologies, we are going to deliver multiple software increments. What do you mean by software increment? Let me assume that we are having a calculator program. Within the calculator program, we may be having various modules like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, etc. Now each and every module will be treated as a software increment. Within 1 week, I am going to deliver a software increment of addition module to the customer. Do you get it? So this is what is called as an software increments. If you see it, this is the word software increment, that what I am going to point out. Okay, I think you hope you understand this. Now we are going to move to the next one. Adapts as changes occur. What do you mean by adaptation? Adaptation means ready to take or incorporate changes that may are coming from the customer. So always agile methodologies will say that we are going to adopt the new changes that are coming from the customer. Now we are going to see about the agility principles. Okay. Now, agility principles, what they are actually going to tell. Any agile software process, suppose that there is a software process which is an agile model. Okay, it can be characterized in a manner that addresses a number of key assumptions about the majority of software projects. Every software project will be having certain key assumptions. Definitely, each and every software project, whether it is a banking project or insurance project or automobile project, they are going to have certain key assumptions. Now these key assumptions are going to get addressed by a software process which is actually following the agile approach. Now we are going to see about our highest various principles of Agile, the first one is the highest priority. Here, always the highest priority will be given to the customer only. Customer is our God. Okay, whatever the customer says, we have to obey it. So, highest priority should always be given to the customer requirements. Okay, so that is about the first principle. And this one is going to achieve the first principle, that is highest priority, is going to given by the customer will always be given the highest priority. What do you mean by that? I mean to say that, see, we can give highest priority to the customer by delivering the software increments frequently to the customer. Means what? Suppose that I am building a calculator project. You know that a calculator project may be having an addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modular, sine, cos, tan, log, exponential, etc., etc. Each and every week I am going to develop one module and I am going to deliver it to the customer. That's what I mean to say. Then only the customer may be satisfied that his work is going on. So, the highest priority will be given to the customer. Now, the second principle is saying that welcome changing the requirements. So, you need to always welcome changes that are coming from the customer at any point of time. So, even during the design phase, he may come up and ask for changes. You need to incorporate those changes that are requested by the customer in the design itself. I think you understand. So, whatever the requirements that a customer takes to you, you are going to welcome those changes. Forget about whether you are going to implement it or not. See, if you want to implement those changes, definitely you have to estimate what is the budget that is allocated to accommodate those changes. Yes or no? Okay. And budget also and time also. Suppose that I have promised to deliver 10 functionalities to the customer. Assume that. Within 10 months, assume that. Now, after 2 months, customer may come up to me and ask for some other 5 changes to incorporate in their project. Then I can't deny it. If I want to accept them, I will clearly tell the customer that if I try to include these 5 additional requirements, the budget may be whatever the budget that what we have assumed at the starting, that might not be the budget now. That budget will be increased, and as well as the time. Time also, it's a 10 months time. Now it will be increased to 15 months time, like that. Okay. So, welcoming changes to the requirements is the second agility principle. Now, third agility principle is you are going to deliver the working software much more frequently. That is the third agile principle. See, for every 2 weeks or couple of weeks, or we are going to deliver a software in terms of increments only. That is the third one. Fourth one is saying that business people and developers. Who are business people? Business analysts, and as well as customers, and as well as the developers, they work together, okay, daily throughout the project. That is the fourth principle. Now, fifth principle is saying that you have to build the projects around motivated individuals. See, whenever you are going to develop the project, if you want your project to quickly deliver to the customer, you should do the project or work out on the project around the surrounding of the motivated people. If you want to do or complete your project within time, definitely you should do it with the help of motivated people. So, build the projects around motivated individuals. And the next principle of Agile is the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face communication. Now, I am going to highlight the word called as face-to-face conversation. What do you mean by that? See, the most effective communication in all fashions. You may be having the online lectures nowadays, but the face-to-face communication cannot be replaced by any online teaching or anything. You can't replace it. Why? Why? Because the interaction between two persons, if it is a face-to-face, is much more efficient rather than any other form of communication. So, in Agile, we treat the customer as a part of our team. So, customer is going to sit beside you only. So, you are going to directly interact with the customer, maybe in an informal way. It may not be an formal way, maybe in an informal way. That is about the face-to-face communication, which is the sixth one. Now, seventh one, we are going to say that working software is the primary measure of the progress. See how you can estimate the progress of a project. The primary progress of a project can be estimated only by the help of the working software. See, if you have delivered an additional functionality to the customer and customer is going to check whether it is able to add 2 or more numbers correctly and is giving correct output or not, then only we can say that it is a working software. Then the working software is the only measure of to indicate the progress of a project. Now we are going to have the eighth principle. Agile processes promote sustainable development. Agile process always going to promote what? Sustainable development. See, the sponsors who are going to funding for our project, developers, users, they should be able to maintain a constant pace. It is, what do you mean by constant pace? Now I want to highlight the word, what do you mean by constant pace indefinitely? Constant pace, what do you mean by that? See, suppose that within 1 month, I promise the customer that I will deliver 4 modules. For every 1 month, I am going to deliver 4 modules, or 4 software increments will be delivered to the customer for every 1 month. Assume that in the first month I have delivered 12 modules, second month I have delivered 4 modules, third month I have delivered nothing, fourth month I have delivered one module. This is not a constant pace. Constant pace means every month I am going to have whatever I have promised to the customer, I am going to deliver it to the customer. So that's what is called as a constant pace. This is a much more important word. Now we are going to see about the next principle of Agile. Continuous attention should be paid to the technical excellence, and good design enhances agility. So you have to continuously pay your attention to the technical excellence. Means what? Whatever the new technologies that are evolving, you need to go through those new technologies. That's what is called as continuous attention. Your employees should get training on the new technologies in order to build any software product. That's what is called as a continuous attention that should be paid to the technical excellence and good design. That is about the 9th principle. Now we are going to see about the 10th agility principle, simplicity. See, what do you mean by simplicity means, see, whatever the work that what we have done so far, we don't glory it, we don't maximize it, but whatever the work that is pending, we are going to maximize it. That's what is called simplicity. Whatever the work that is pending, we are going to highlight it, so that our focus will be more on pending work rather than the done work. So this is about the simplicity principle. Now the 11th agility principle is saying that the best architectures, requirements, designs emerge from the self-organizing team. So only when the team is self-organizing, means if the team is disciplined by itself, then only we can expect better architecture, best architectures. Architectures means what? They are designs, and requirements and as well as designs, they are going to emerge from self-organizing team. So whenever a team is self-organized, I am going to highlight this one, self-organizing. What do you mean by that? Means what? A team is very much disciplined in doing the things, then only you can expect this best architectures, requirements and designs. Now we are going to see about the 12th principle. At regular intervals, the team is going to reflect on how to become more and more effective. See, at regular intervals of time, for each and every 15 days, or for each and every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or one month, 2 months, etc., we are going to, at regular intervals, the team is going to reflect on how to become more effective, how we can more effectively complete the project, how we can put more efforts in completion of the project. That's what at regular intervals we are going to have the team is going to reflect on how to become more and more effective. Okay, this is about the 12th agility principle. Now we are going to see about the human factors that are involved. Now the process models, okay, to the needs of the people and team, not the other way around. See, what do you mean by this? Human factors involve that the process should mold to the needs. Whatever the process that we are going to adopt to develop a software development, in order to develop a software, we need to use a process, and this process should mold to the needs of whom? To the needs of the people only. So for what purpose you are going to develop the product? For only customer. Who is customer? He is an end user like us. See, SBI website is one of the example for a software. Okay, we are going to develop an SBI website. Who is the customer for it? SBI organization itself. SBI itself is a customer. So who are the customers? All the account holders of the SBI are treated as the customer, including SBI, right? So whatever the process that what we are going to apply in order to develop a software product, that should mold to the needs of the people and team, and not other way around. Now we are going to see about the second human factor. Key traits must exist among the people on Agile team and the team itself. Key traits should exist among the people within the team and outside the team also. Now we are going to have the second human factor, that's what is called as a competence. What do you mean by this competence? And third one is the common focus, it is the human factor. And collaboration. Collaboration means working together in order to complete a task, a work task. Most of the people are going to work together as a team. That's what is called collaboration. So common focus will be to complete the project within time, and within the cost should be the common focus of each and every member of the Agile team. Now the fourth factor what we are going to see is decision making ability. See, whenever a problem comes, you need to take decisions. You should have the capability to make decisions at appropriate time in order to be, that is the success behind the project. If you are not able to take decisions quickly with respect to a time, within the time, then the project may collapse. So you have to have the decision making ability. Now we are going to have the fudgy problem solving ability. You need to have, you have the capability, you should have the capability to solve the fudgy problems also. These are the human factors, and the next one is mutual trust and respect. Now, each and every member of Agile team should respect the other member of the Agile team, and as well as he should have mutual trust on the other members. So within the team, there should be a mutual respect, and as well as outside the team also, between the team members and outside members also, we should have the mutual respect, as well as we should have the mutual trust. Okay, now these are the various factors. Let me highlight it. Competence is the first human factor, and second one is common focus, third one is collaboration, fourth one is decision making ability, fifth one is fudgy problem solving ability, and sixth one is mutual trust and respect. These are the human factors. And the next human factor is self-organization. We should have the ability to organize ourselves in order to do any project successfully. First of all, our team should have the ability to, should follow a systematic approach and disciplined approach to do the project. That's what is called as a self-organization. Now we are going to see about the next concept called as a extreme programming. See, it is the most widely used agile approach. We can say that it is the most widely used agile approach. This is what is called an extreme programming. Most popularly and widely used agile approach is nothing but the extreme programming. In shortcut we can call it as XP. Now we are going to see the first thing about the XP. The most widely used agile process originally proposed by Kent Beck. Kent Beck is the person who suggested this model. Now we are going to see about the next point. More recently, a variant. There may be several variants of XP. A variant of XP called in an industrial XP has been proposed. Most recently, the advanced feature of XP, example extra variant of XP means industrial XP. That actually is the latest one. The XP may be having various versions. Out of them, latest version is the industrial XP. Industrial XP means extreme programming that is mostly suitable for applying in software organizations. That's what is called industrial XP that is proposed. And we are going to see about the next thing in XP values. There are various set of values that are proposed by this Beck. So there are set of values, mostly 5 set of values are being proposed, and we call them as XP values. So here the Beck defines, you're going to have a set of 5 values. Those values are called as XP values. Let me explain them. What is first one? It is communication. What is the second one? It's the simplicity. What is the third one? It's the feedback. Fourth one, courage. And fifth one, respect. So each and every XP team, XP in extreme programming should have these 5 values that are proposed by the Beck. See, what are the 4 values? Communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect. These are the 5 values. Now we are going to see about the next one. Each of these 5 values is going to be used as a driver. What do you mean by driver? Which is going to drive the something. See, suppose that when you call that he is a car driver, if he has able to drive a car, run a car. Okay. Similarly, in the same fashion, all these set of 5 values, communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect, these 5 values are will be used as a driver for specific XP activities, actions, and tasks. If you observe this keyword, we are going to continuously encounter these 3 keywords. First one is activities, second one is actions, and third one is tasks. We are going to completely explore those keywords. Now we are going to see about extreme programming. Generally is going to use a programming paradigm. That's what is called as an object-oriented approach. We are going to make use of this object-oriented approach by the extreme programming. So there may be various type of approaches already you are aware of. One is procedure-oriented programming and the other one is object-oriented programming. Here, extreme programming is going to make use of this object-oriented programming approach as its preferred development paradigm. So this is about this object-oriented approach. Now if you see the diagram, the extreme programming consisting of these phases: planning, design, coding, and testing. So what do you mean by this planning? So requirement analysis, requirement gathering comes under this phase of is called as a planning. Here if you observe user stories and values and as well as acceptance test criteria and as well as iteration plans. What do you mean by acceptance test criteria? See, once you develop a plan, means requirements gathering and as well as analysis phase, you are going to check it out with customer. Whatever the customer has specified, whether the same thing exists in your requirements or not, whether do you have any misleadings or misunderstood the requirements that are told by the customer to you. So in order to test that, we need to have certain acceptance criteria. This is a criteria that should be satisfied in order to get acceptance from the customer. That's what is called as a planning. Now second one is called as a design. This design may be a simple design by using CRC cards, or they may be a spike solutions prototypes. Now we are going to have a design, means always we are going to represent the entire thing with the help of a model or with the help of a diagram. So entire architecture comes under this design. So whenever I use the word design, understand that designs means it represents an architecture. Design means in a diagrammatic fashion we are going to represent the entire process flow. Now we are going to see about the next one, that is what is called a coding. In coding means implementation part. Whatever the designs that you have made, now these designs should be converted into coding. Means with the help of high level programming languages, you need to write the coding for the designs. Means design should be translated into coding. Okay. Now in coding, we are going to see about a concept called as a pair programming. What do you mean by pair? Pair means two. Two means what? See, two persons are going to work together. He may be a customer and he may be a developer. Both of them may work together, or he may be a developer to developer. So a pair means a couple. Couple means what? Either he may be a customer and as well as he may be a developer, or testing and development may happen if they are in a pair wise. We say that it is a pair programming. Or design and coding, both of them will be parallelly or going to work together concurrently. Then also we can say that it is pair programming. Now here we are going to see about refactoring, and then finally we are going to have this testing. After testing only we are going to release this. If you see here, we are going, after testing only we are going to release the software increment to the customer. So this is about the diagram. So the diagram is mainly consisting of how many phases? It's a planning, design, coding and testing. Now we are going to see about planning. Each and every activity we are going to see individually. Planning, it means it begins with the creation of user stories. Planning always is going to begin with the creation of user stories only. Now, where agile team is going to assess. Assess means what? Estimates each and every story and assigns a cost. Each and every story will be having a cost. What do you mean by a story? See, scenario. What do you mean by scenario? Scenario means login. So what are the various essential things that are about login? One is you have to enter valid username, another one is you have to enter valid password, and then only you have to click on the sign in button. Then you will be able to log into your account. Yes or no? So that's what is called as a scenario. Scenario is here we take them as, we treat them as a stories. Now each and every story will be having an individual cost. Now we are going to see about the stories are grouped. We are going to group the stories for a deliverable increment. Whenever we are going to see about the increment consisting of a group of stories, and stories are nothing but the user scenario. So a software increment is always going to conclude or include a group of stories. Now we are going to see about the commitments. So the commitment is made on delivery date. See, always before starting the project, we are going to have a conversation with the customer where we are going to decide I am going to do the project within time. So within how much amount of time, that will be decided at the beginning. Okay. Once the customer is going to add certain new requirements or new changes, this time schedules may also change. That's what is called as a commitment. But our commitment is delivered to the project within time. Now, after the first increment, let me assume that calculator is one program. What is the first increment? Let me assume that addition is the first increment, subtraction is the second increment, multiplication is the third increment, division is the fourth increment, modulus is the fifth increment. Assume that. Now, after the first increment, that is addition, project velocity means project speed. Velocity is speed. Is used to help define subsequent delivery dates. See, suppose that in calculator program, it will take 1 week to deliver addition, 1 week to deliver subtraction, 1 week to deliver multiplication, 1 week to deliver division, etc. Assume that. Okay. Now, suppose that within 1 week we may not be able to deliver the addition. Okay. Definitely it will take, assume that it takes 2 weeks of time. So whatever the initial assumption of us, every week I am going to deliver one software increments, but that is not the case here. Now the time may be delayed. So depending upon that, I am going to estimate the speed of the project completion. I think that you are getting it. Okay. So whenever a delay happens, I am going to postpone my time schedule. I am going to extend my time schedule. Or if at all, if I am able to deliver the software functionality within time, that is within 1 week, I am able to, if I am able to deliver an additional functionality, I will go on saying the initial schedules only. Okay, do you get it? Now we are going to see about the XP design. Now XP design is going to follow a principle called as KIS. Keep it simple. What do you mean by keep it simple? See, design should always be done within a simpler fashion. Why? Because design should be giving a guidance to the development team. See, after design is over, then development team is going to jump in and going to write coding for the designs that what they have made. See, architects are going to design the product, right? So they should design always keeping in mind that this design will be used as a guidance for the developers to implement this design into code. See, they are going to develop, it is the developer's role to translate this design into code. So the designers should always keep in mind that whatever the designs that they do, they should be in a very simple way. These designs should be very simple so that they can be easily converted into code by the software developers. That is what is called as a keep it simple principle. Now encourage the use of CRC card. Here we are going to encourage the use of CRC card. Here for difficult designs, okay, so there are certain problems which may be easy, there are certain problems which may not be easy. But for difficult problems, whenever you encounter about difficult problems, so you suggest the creation of spike solutions. You are going to suggest the creation of spike solution for whom? For handling the difficult problems. Problems may be of various types. They may be difficult problems and they may be easy problems. Whenever you encounter difficult problems, your suggestions is to have a creation of spike solutions as a design prototype. Now we are going to see about the next point in designs, encouraging the refactoring. So we are going to have, what do you mean by refactoring? Again, reviewing mechanism. We can say it is a reviewing mechanism. Already you have written a code for a particular requirement. So if anything wrong happens or if anything quality issue comes, you are going to optimize the code. That's what is called as a refactoring. That's what we say it as a refactoring. I think you are understanding what you mean by refactoring. So modifying the existing code to make it much more optimal. That's what is called as an refactoring, and that is done in an iterative refinement, in an iterative approach. So each and every iteration is going to refactor. Now we are going to have a recommendation, that is construction of unit test. What do you mean by unit test? See, if you as a developer, it is a test that is being done by the developer. As soon as you develop a code, immediately you are going to do what? You are going to test your own code. That's what is called as a unit testing. Now we are going to recommend the construction of such type of unit testing. If you see, this is the unit test that is being done by the developer once he develops the code and tests by himself. Okay, for a store before coding commences. This is what about the unit test. Now we are going to encourage a concept called as pair programming. Already I have given what do you mean by pair? A pair may be a couple. Maybe all the design activity and coding activity, both of them are going to run parallelly or concurrently. That's what is called as a pair programming. Now XP coding. We are going to go to the XP planning is over, design is over. Now we are going to heading towards the XP coding. Now recommends the construction of this XP coding. Coding means what? Writing programs in any high level programming language. It is going to recommend the construction of a unit test for a store before coding commences. See, unit tests should be written or should be constructed before you start writing coding. That is the coding principle. Now you are going to encourage the pair programming. Now XP testing. We are going to come again the next concept called as XP testing. See, all the unit tests are going to execute it daily. So we are going to have a sequence of unit tests, okay, series of unit tests. Unit tests are going to execute it on a daily basis. Now we are going to have certain acceptance tests. What do you mean by this acceptance test? These are the tests that are going to meet the criteria of the customer. See, who is going to accept your coding or who is going to accept your functionality or your software? It is the customer who is the highest person, highest priority should be given to the customer. It is the customer who is going to actually accept the software increment that is delivered to him by you. So acceptance test should be defined by the customer. Who is going to define them? Customer is going to define them. And they are going to execute it to assess. Assess means to estimate customer visible functionality. Now we are going to see about industrial XP. Now industrial XP, we can say that it is an organic evolution of XP. So industrial XP is somewhat different from XP, but it is an organic evolution of XP. Now we are going to say that it is imbued or inherited, or it is going to inserted, embedded with XP's certain mechanism called as minimalistic mechanism. Minimalistic. As minimum as possible you have to design. As minimum as possible you should be clear, like that. So minimalistic and as well as customer centric, always the center of attraction should be customer. Always with respect to customer point of view, you have to identify. And test driven spirit, it is the three things that are inspired from the traditional XP into the industrial XP. Now XP is going to differ most from the original XP. There are certain things that are taken from original XP into the industrial XP, but the industrial XP is going to have its own ideas. That's what we are saying, that is going to differ from the original XP, and it in the greater inclusion of management. In what aspects? In industrial XP, you are going to have a greater inclusion of management that is not seen in normal XP. So industrial XP is going to include what? Greater inclusion of management. This is the first one that it differentiates from industrial XP from the normal XP. Now it is expanded role of customer role will also be expanded, and upgraded technical practices. See, industrial XP is going to differ from the normal XP in three areas. Already I told you what are the three areas. One is greater inclusion of management. Management will be increment or inclusion will be much more in the industrial XP. And second one is the role of the customer will be expanded. What is the third one? See, you are going to have almost all 6 new practices that exist only in industrial XP, but that won't exist in normal XP. 6 new practices are what we are going to see. Now industrial XP, actually I told you this concept. 6 new practices what we are going to discuss. They are going to differentiate the industrial XP from the normal XP. Okay, now we are going to see that. The most widely used of all agile processes is the extreme programming. See, there may be various types of agile process. Out of them, the most widely used agile approach is the extreme programming only. So there may be other than the extreme programming. There are maybe several types of agile models that are there other than extreme programming, but extreme programming is the most widely and popularly used agile technique. Okay, what are the other things we can have? Agile models, we can say that it is a crystal model, we can say that it is an adaptive software development method, and we can say that it is a dynamic system development method, DSDM. We can say that it is a Scrum, SCRUM, Scrum model. It is one of the example for agile models only. And we can have a feature driven model, feature driven FDD, feature driven development model we can have, and we can have a lean software development method, LEAN, lean software development method, and we can have agile modeling, we can have agile unified process. There are various types of 8 different agile models out there. Apart from them, extreme programming is the most popularly and most widely used agile model. I think you understood that one. Okay. Now we are going to see about the first model. Already I told you adaptive software development is the first one, crystal model, and DSDM, dynamic system development model, etc. This is adaptive software development model. This is one of the agile models only. The next one is Scrum model, and next one is dynamic system development model, DSDM, already I mentioned it, and then crystal model, and then feature driven development model, and then lean software development model, and then agile model and agile unified process. These are the 8 models other than this XP, but apart from these 8 models, it is the XP, extreme programming, which is most popularly and most widely used. Now we are going to see them one by one. All agile process models, actually they are all, whatever it is a DSDM, or it is an agile modeling, or it is an agile unified process, either it is a crystal, or it is an adaptive software development, whatever it may be, all these agile process models, they are always going to conform to a greater or a lesser degree of manifesto. Whatever the manifesto that what we have seen earlier in starting of this unit. So manifesto means what? There are the list of promises that are being given, that are written, okay, in a brochure, right? Like that, in the same fashion we are going to have an agile manifesto. Whatever the models that we are going to list at, these 8 models, they are going to conform to the agile manifesto, either greater degree or by a lesser degree, but they are going to conform to the manifesto of agile. Now we are going to see the first model, adaptive software development model. Now adaptive software development models are actually proposed by the Jim Highsmith. Who proposed it? It is the Jim Highsmith who proposed the model of agile. adaptive software development model. Okay, and this model can be used for building what? By building a very complex and as well as software systems. So this model, that is adaptive software development model, is mainly used to focus to build or construct a complex softwares and systems. That is what is called as a adaptive software development model. So for what purpose we are going to use this model? We are going to use this model to build a complex software systems. So what is the philosophical underpinnings? What do you mean by philosophy? Underlying principles is called as a philosophy. Now the philosophy of this model is going to focus on human collaboration. The first importance will be given to the human collaboration within this model. What do you mean by collaboration? See, a group of people are working together to perform or to achieve a particular task. That's what is called as a collaboration. Now human collaboration will be given highest priority, and as well as the team self-organization is going to have a highest priority. Here, adaptive software development model, we are going to give highest priority to two things. What are the two things? One is to human collaboration. Actually I am seeing it on screen, human collaboration, and the second one is team self-organization. These are the two things which are given most focus in the adaptive software development model. Now we are going to see about the adaptive software development model, distinguished features, its unique features. Okay, what is the first feature? It's a mission driven planning. Always we should have a mission. Every model will be having a mission. What will be the mission? To complete the software project within time and within budget and effectively, and always you should be able to welcoming the changes that are coming from the customer. Why? Because it is an agile model. So mission driven planning should be there. Planning should be done in a mission driven way. Now component based focus. What is a component? Component is the smallest part of a software project. For example, if you are building an SBI website, what are the components of SBI website? See, deposit module is one of the component, withdrawal module is one of the component, fund transfer module is one of the component, or if you take and calculate the program, addition, subtraction, multiplication, all of them all comes under a component only. Okay, now we are going to have a concept called as a time boxing. What do you mean by time boxing? Within this time, this software increment should be delivered to the customer. That's what is called as a time bounding. Okay, actually you are seeing it, right? So time bound boxing means what? Within this particular time interval, you are going to do or deliver the software increment to the customer. That's what is called as a time boxing. It is used by this model. And now explicit consideration of risk. See, definitely whenever changes are made from the customer, we are going to encounter about risks. What is the risk? If I try to include the new requirement, new change from the customer that is requested by the customer, cost may increase, yes or no? And budget means cost will increase, means budget will be affected, and the time to deliver the functionality will also get affected. So that's what is called as an explicit consideration of risks. These are comes under risks only. Now in this model we are going to focus on the collaboration for requirement gathering. We are going to have a focus on collaboration for requirement gathering. This model mainly focuses two things. Already I told you. One is human collaboration is the one, and is the first one, and the team self-organization is the second one. So this model is going to focus on collaboration for requirement gathering. Now we are going to have the next focus on in this model as learning throughout the process. See, learning cannot be stopped. Whenever you are a agile team member, you are expected to be very dynamic and very quick to respond to any changes, whether these are the changes that are made to the requirements, or these are the changes that are required, that are meant to the design, or these are the changes that are made to the development, etc., etc. With respect to any type of changes, you should respond. So such type of member you are. So the focus will be much more on the learning. See, each and every member of the agile team should be adapted to the new technologies, See, day to day the technologies may be changing. Okay, nowadays Python is becoming popular. Okay, in the next era it may be an artificial intelligence, or it may be a data science, etc. Whatever the new technology that comes up, your team members should be cope up with the new technology. So that is the beautiful thing about the agility. Agility means they are very dynamic by nature. They are very dynamic by nature, and they are very quick to respond. Do you understand what do you mean? What I am meaning? I mean to say that they are very quick to respond to any changes that are being made in requirements, or that are being made in design, or that are being made in construction, etc. So all the members of the agile team should be well adapted to the new technologies that are coming up. Okay. Now we are going to see about the next model, that is what is called as a Scrum. Actually the Scrum is an example for agile model only. We are going to take this from the rugby team. Actually you have seen the rugby team where number of players are going to play together by handing a ball with them. Okay, this is the keyword that is actually taken up from the rugby team, rugby game. From the rugby game they have put it out the word called as Scrum. Not only this, we have some other word called as sprints. Sprints also a word that is coming up from the rugby game. Now Scrum. Scrum is going to have certain principles, and these principles should be consistent with the Agile Manifesto. Whatever the models that what we are going to suggest it now, 8 models, they are going to cope up with the manifesto of Agile only. They are going to cope up with what? They are going to cope up with the manifesto of Agile only. Okay. Now Scrum is going to have certain principles that are actually consistent with the Agile Manifesto, and these principles can be used to guide the development activities within a process. They are going to guide what? They are going to guide the development activities and that are within a process, and they are going to incorporate various framework activities like requirements is one of the activity of this Scrum model: analysis, design, evaluation and delivery. How many activities are there in Scrum? 5 activities are there. What are they? Requirement, analysis, design, evaluation and delivery. Now we are going to see about within each and every framework activity, how many activities? Requirement, analysis, design, delivery and evaluation. These are the 5 activities, 5 framework activities. Within each and every framework activity, the work tasks are going to occur in a process pattern that are identified with a process pattern. So these process patterns that are going to identify work tasks are called as a sprint. So this is the word I am talking about. Sprint is the one more keyword that is taken out from the rugby game only. Okay, what do you mean by sprint? Sprint can be defined as the work task, okay, that are going to occur within each and every process activity of the framework of Scrum, and this work task that is existing in each and every framework activity of Scrum is called as a sprint. It is an activity, work activity, understand that. Now we are going to have this model is originally proposed by Scuba and Beadle. Now Scrum is going to have its own distinguished features. What are the features? Let me see. Development work is actually partitioned into packets. Here we are going to divide the entire work, that is what is called a development work. We can say that it is a construction work that is actually partitioned into packets. Now we are going to have a testing and documentation, or both of them are an ongoing process as the product is constructed. Both the testing and documentation. And you know that documentation can be done in various ways. It may be software documents or hardware documents. Both the documents and testing may be done and together. They are going to work together. Okay, we are going to build the documentation and at the same time we are going to testing. Both of them are ongoing as the product is constructed. Now we are going to see about the next point in Scrum. Work occurs in sprints. Already I told you what do you mean by sprint. A sprint can be defined as a work task that exists in each and every framework activity, like right from starting from the delivery, starting from the evaluation, starting from the requirements, starting from the analysis, design. See, these work tasks are going to occur in each and every framework activity and that are identified by a process pattern. Those are called as sprints. Now, work is going to occur in terms of sprints only. Already I told you this is the sprint. The works are going to occur in sprints only and is delivered from a backlog of existing requirement. So what do you mean by backlogs? Backlogs means is the pending works. There may be several pending works that needs to be delivered to the customer. So out of these pending works, out of these backlogs, I'm going to give a priority to the set of backlogs, and which backlog should be cleared first, which backlog should be cleared next. See, even in BTech also, you may be having backlogs concept, right? So sublease, maybe backlogs means those subjects which you are not able to clear. They will be called as backlogs. If you are having 3 to 4 backlogs, you are going to prioritize those backlogs, which backlog should be cleared first. So that you are going to give a priority. Similarly, in the same fashion, we are going to have a backlogs that are called as pending works, and we are going to give priority to the pending work. Okay, do you get it? Now, meetings are very short. Here in Scrum model, we are going to conduct each and every day, we are going to have a meeting. Okay, each and every day we are going to have a meeting, and for every 24 hours meeting will be conducted, and this meeting span will be only 15 minutes. Understand that. Only a short time meetings will be conducted in Scrum. Means for every day we are going to have only 15 minutes of meeting, and for every 30 days daily, for every 1 month, for every day, for every 24 hours. Understand this. 365 days. Okay. And 12 months means what? 365 days. For every 30 days and for every 1 month means what? For every day for every 24 hours, we are going to have a conduction of meeting for 15 minutes. So meeting will be conducted for every day for 15 minutes only. These meetings may be even informal. Even by standing posture only, you are going to reprint or you are going to give the demos to the customers or your team members. So meetings are very much short. That's what I mean to say. Only for 15 minutes we are going to have the meeting, and sometimes conducted without chairs. By standing only, you can deliver it. Now Scrum demos are delivered to whom? To the customers with the time box allocated. Now we are going to see about the Scrum diagram. This is the Scrum diagram which I am talking about. See, if you see this region, you are going to identify that for every 24 hours, you are going to have a 15 minutes meetings. If you clearly observe this diagram, one person is actually standing and all other fellows are sitting. What do you mean by that? See, it is not that it is not a formal meeting. It is an informal meeting. Even at coffee shops, you can go with your team members and go and deliver at that coffee shop itself. That is a beautiful thing about this Scrum meeting. For every 15 minutes, for every day, you are going to have only 15 minutes of meetings, and these may be quite informal, quite informal. So even by standing also, you are going to give a demo, okay, for 15 minutes. Now, in each and every Scrum meeting, the Scrum team leader, Scrum master, what do you mean by Scrum master? Means he is the leader of the Scrum team. Now, for every day, the Scrum master or team leader of the Scrum is going to ask you certain questions. There are 3 questions that will be asked by the Scrum master to each and every member of the Scrum team. So, what are the 3 questions? Let me elaborate it. See, do you have any problems in doing your work? Daily this question will be asked to each and every team member of the Scrum. See, if you see this is the second question. Okay, do you have any obstacles or problems? What is the first question? See, the first question is saying that what the work you have done from the last Scrum meeting till now. So when the last meeting was happened yesterday. So there is a 24 hours gap. Now what you have done within these 24 hours? Okay, you tell me. And what are the problems you have encountered? You tell me. That is the second one. Okay. First one is what you have done from the last Scrum meeting till now. And the third one is what is your future plan to do the work in the next Scrum meeting. So till the next Scrum meeting is going to commence, what the work that you are going to do. That is about the third question. These are the 3 questions that are asked by the Scrum team leader, or we can say that he is the Scrum master who is going to ask these 3 questions to the Scrum team members. I hope that you are understanding what I am saying. So these are the 3 questions. If you observe, what do you do since the last Scrum meeting? And second question is, do you have any obstacles? And the third one is, what will you do before the next Scrum meeting? Okay. Now this is the 24 hours time. Within 24 hours time, this type of informal, by even standing, such type of meetings will be conducted, 15 minutes duration every day, and for 30 days this is going to get repeated. Okay. Now if you see at the left hand side, you are going to see about the sprint backlog. See, these are the pending works that are filed up as a pile. Okay. Now these are the pending works that should be there. So product backlog. Okay. These are the backlogs that are there. Now out of this, see, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So out of these 4 backlogs, I have given a priority to these 4 backlogs. Now this is the backlog that is having highest priority. Now that will be converted into work and will be delivered at finally. This is what about the Scrum diagram. Now we are going to see about the next model that's called as a dynamic system development method. Okay. Now this is actually promoted by the DSDM consortium only. So who promoted this one? Dynamic system development method. This is developed by this is promoted by the consortium. Now this model is having its own distinguishing features. What are the distinct features? It is similar in most respects to the XP. See, this model, dynamic system development methodology, is almost as similar to the traditional extreme programming or adaptive software development method. It is similar to them. Now we are going to have 9 guiding principles for this model. See, the first guiding principle is saying that the active user involvement is the most imperative. Imperative means what? It is very, very important to have the active participation of the user. Without active participation of the user, it won't work out. Okay, so it is very imperative. Imperative means it's very significant or important to have the active user involvement. That is what is the first principle. Now second principle is saying that DSDM teams must be empowered to make decisions. See, all the teams of DSDM should be given a liberty to what? To make decisions. That is the second one. And third one is saying that the focus will be more on frequent delivery of products. See, if you are having a SBI banking website development, frequent delivery of deposit module will be delivered within 15 days. For every 2 weeks, I'm going to deliver one functionality like deposit, then withdrawal, and then fund transfer, like that. Okay, so the focus will be much more on frequent delivery of products. And the next one is fitness for business purposes is an essential criterion for acceptance of deliverable. See, what do you mean by fitness? Fitness means what? You are capable enough to, for what? For business purposes, you are capable enough. That is very, very important criteria for acceptance of deliverable. I think you understand that. Now we are going to see about iterative and incremental development is necessary. See, we are going to have these two different approaches that are included in dynamic system development methodology. What is that one? One is iterative. Iterative means repeatedly you are going to do the same thing again and again for superfinement or to improve the quality. Okay, iterative and incremental development. For the first week, I am going to deliver additional module. For the second week, I am going to deliver the subtraction module. So that's what is called a software increment. And in iterative, for first iteration, I am going to get this increment as addition. For the second increment, I am going to have hand over the task as subtraction, and for the third increment we are going to give it as a multiplication, fourth increment we are going to give it as a division, etc., etc., to converge and actuate a business solution. Now we are going to have all changes that are during development or reversible. So this is the most important point. See, all the changes that you have made during development, they are reversible. Why? See, agile approaches is that always changes will happen. Software is dynamic by nature. Similarly, in order to cope up these changes, it is agile approaches that has the ability to welcome changes that are coming from the customer at any point of time. Now all these changes that are made during the development are completely reversible. Now we are going to see about the next one, that is requirements or baseline. So what you are going to have? You are going to have baseline certain requirements which will not change in future, and that will be done at higher level. There are certain requirements that will never change. For example, if you take the SBI website, the deposit module will never change, and withdrawal module will also never change. Fund transfer will never change. Why? Because they are the standard functionality of any banking sector, not only SBI, any banking sector. So these are certain requirements that are baseline at high level. That's what I mean to say. And then the next one is testing is integrated throughout the life cycle. See, throughout the entire life cycle of this DSDM, we are going to perform the activity called as testing. Now we are going to see that DSDM is also an agile software development approach that is going to provide a framework for building and maintaining systems. So this DSDM approach is going to build, is going to give you what? Is going to give you or provide you a framework for what purpose? For building as well as maintaining the systems which meet tight time constraints. What do you mean by tight time constraints? See, tight time constraint means within this particular period of time only you need to complete such type of time constraint projects. There are certain projects whose deadlines are very, very tight. Whenever you are going to develop any project whose timelines are very, very tight, you are going to make use of this DSDM model. Now DSDM model is going to provide you a framework for building and maintaining the systems which are going to meet tight timeline constraints. I think you hope you are getting it. I hope that you got it. Okay. Now we are going to move to the next point. DSDM philosophy. Every model is going to have philosophy. This DSDM model is also going to have certain philosophy. And this philosophy is borrowed from a modified version of the Pareto principle. Here we are going to see one more important principle called as a Pareto principle. So what is the Pareto principle? The Pareto principle is saying that if you are able to complete 80% of the work within 20% of time, that remaining work can be done within time. That is the success of the project is assured. See, what do you mean by that? See, suppose that I have a project, assume that it is a calculator project only. So calculator project is, we are having 5 modules: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division and modules. How many modules? 5 modules. So assume that each and every module will take 20 days of time. Okay. So in order to complete the entire calculator project, I will take 100 days. Yes or no? Now, if I am able to complete 80% of the work, means what? 80% of 100 means what? 4 modules, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, if I am able to complete within 20 days of time. Okay, normally it will take 80 days of time to complete those 4 modules, but assume that if at all if you are able to complete those 4 modules within 20 days of time, which is nothing but 20% of time, that 80% of work is done, then the remaining work can be done within time. So you are giving a guarantee or assurance to the customer that the product will be completely delivered to the customer within time if you are able to complete 80% of work within 20% of time. The remaining work is only 20% and the remaining team is much more larger than that, it is 80%. Okay, I think you understand that Pareto principle. Now DSDM is an iterative software process only, in which each iteration is going to follow this 80% rule. Now we are going to see about the various phases of this DSDM. Pre-project will be there, that is before you start the project, we say that it is in a pre-project state. We are going to have about feasibility foundations, we are going to have explorations, we are going to have deployments. Deployments would what? Handling the software increments, those are nothing but the deliverable functionalities to the customer are called as deployments. Okay, deliverable functionality to the customer. Now we are going to have engineering, we are going to have a post project. Now we are going to see about the next model called as a Crystal. Crystal is actually proposed by the Cockburn and Highsmith. Now Crystal is going to have its own distinctive features, actually a family of processes and a family of process models that allow maneuverability based on the problem characteristics. We are going to have a family of processes that models that allow a concept called as maneuverability based on problem characteristics. Now here in Crystal, face-to-face communication is focused. Here in Crystal, it is going to suggest the use of the reflection workshops. It is going to propose the use of reflection workshops to review the work habits of the team. Now we are going to have the next model called as feature-driven development, FDD, popularly known as FDD. We are going to see this model is originally proposed by Peter Code. Now this model FDD is having its own distinguished features. See, whatever the models, whether it is a Crystal model, whether it is an adaptive software development model, whether it is a Scrum model, whether it is a dynamic system development model, whether it is an agile model, whether it is an agile unified process model, whether it is an feature-based development model, feature-driven development model, or whether it is a lean software development model, whatever the model may be, they may be having their own individual features. This FDD is also having those features. Now in FDD, much more focus will be done on defining features only. What do you mean by feature? See, feature can be defined as the small blocks. Features can be defined as the small blocks. Now a feature can be defined as a client valued function that can be implemented in a week or less. See, these features are called as a small blocks only, small blocks of increments, small blocks of increments, feature. For example, deposit is a feature, withdrawal is a feature, addition is a feature, subtraction is a feature. Like that, a feature is going to give a value to the client. So we can also call the feature as a client valued function. You can say that it is a client valued function, and that client valued function can be implemented in 2 weeks or less. So each and every feature can be implemented within 2 weeks or less. Now we are going to see about uses feature template. For every feature we are going to maintain certain template. What do you mean by template? It's a predefined format. So there is a structure. We are going to follow that for every feature. Deposit is a feature, addition is a feature, subtraction, multiplication, division, mod is a features. Okay. Similarly, in the same fashion, deposit, withdrawal, fund transfer is a features. They are all features. Now every feature will be represented by a predefined format. We call it as a template. Now this template, if you observe, this is the action tag, okay, this is the result, and this is by, for, of, to. Out of this, by, slash, for, slash, of, slash, to. So in this braces, angular braces, you can place either by, or for, or of, or to, and a of n is an object. Means already I told you that all the agile philosophies, models are built on object-oriented concepts only. Okay. Now we are going to have a features list is created. Actually, we are going to create a list of features, and each and every feature is planned. See, we are going to have a plan with respect according to each and every feature. Every feature will have its own plan, and it is conducted during the design and construction merge in the FDD. Now this is the diagram that what you can see. So finally what we are going to have, an overall shape. Much more focus will be giving on overall shape rather than the detailed information. First we start with an overall shape. If you observe, develop on overall model. Here we are going to have more shape than content. You are going to focus more on shape rather than on content. That's what is called as overall model. Next we are going to have build a features list. We are going to build a features list. What are the features? If it is a banking product, deposit withdrawal, fund transfer are the features. Build this features list, this list of features. Or if it is a calculator program, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus operation, sine, cos, tan, exponential, these are features. Build list of features. That is the second one. Third one is plan by feature. For every feature we are going to have a separate model, for separate plan for it. Planning means it is a requirements and as well as the analysis. Both of them combined we can call them as a plan. Now this is the most important. See, this is what you can see. Several layers are there or several stacks are there. Okay, one behind the other. These are called as packages only. We are going to have two types of packages. One is design by feature, a design package, and as well as build by feature. Build means what? Construction by packages. Okay, this is the diagram for the entire FDD model. Now we are going to see about the lean software development model, that is LDD. We say it as LDD, lean software development model. Now the lean software development model is actually adopted from the principles of lean manufacturing. See, we are going to have certain principles that are related with lean manufacturing, and this model is actually dependent or emerged from those lean principles. So lean software development model is actually emerged from the lean principles, and these principles are called as lean manufacturing. Okay, now we are going to see the next point of this lean software development. The lean principles that are actually going to inspire the lean software development process, they need to be summarized as eliminate waste. So whatever the unnecessary things are there, you just remove them from the model. So that's what is the meaning of eliminate waste. What is the next one? Build quality in. Always you make sure that you always bring the quality inside your software product. What is the next one? You have to create the knowledge. Always this model is saying that always you need to invent new things, new knowledge. So creating means what? It is not the using thing. See, whatever the knowledge that what we are incorporating or using, that is different from creating. Here you are going to have a creation of the knowledge. You are going to have the creation of the knowledge. Now we are going to have defer the commitment. And the next thing is you need to deliver the software increments as early as possible to the customer. And the next one is you need to show respect to the people. And the next one is you need to optimize the whole. Whole means optimize the entire process. These are the various lean principles. What are they? Eliminate waste, build quality in, create knowledge, defer commitment, deliver the fast as soon as you are going to deliver the software increments to the customer, respect the people and optimize the whole. Now we are going to have the next point in lean software development models. Each of these principles, what are the principles that we have seen so far? Eliminate the waste, respect the people, etc., etc. Each of these principles actually they are adapted to the software process. See, understand the word. Let me go back. Let's understand this word. What is software process? See, a software process, we are going to make use of this software process to develop any software for any project. Suppose that you want to build an SBI website. For that you need to follow a software process. In order to follow the software process, you need to use certain models, and that may be a classical life cycle models or that may be the agile models. So whatever it may be, a software process, with the help of software process only, we are going to build a software development. Okay, development is mainly purely based on software process only. Now we are going to see the first example. That is the principle, lean principle, eliminate the waste. We can give several examples for this eliminate waste. Let me see one by one. See, you are going to add no extraneous features or functions. See, if at all, if your product requires only 10 functionalities, keep it the point in your mind that don't provide any extra features or any extraneous functionalities. Constraint, you have to restrict to the 10 functionalities only. Don't go for additional new functionalities or extraneous functionalities that are not given by the client. Don't do such type of things. If the client wants 10 requirements, you need to deliver those 10 requirements. That is the only thing that is applicable to you. Don't give any extraneous or additional functionalities or features. What is the next one? You need to access the cost and schedule. These are the two most important things. See, whenever you are going to do the project, first of all, you are going to have a overview about the budget. You need to analyze about your budget. Whether you are going to end up in profits or loss, that is the one thing. That is what is called as a cost. And as well as how much time it will take to deliver the functionality. So both the cost and schedule, they are going to have several impacts. Now, you are going to remove any superfluous process steps. What do you mean by that? Suppose that a problem can be solved in 10 steps. If you are able to solve the same problem within 5 steps, then why should I have the additional 5 steps in my process? Remove them. So you have to remove any superfluous process steps. Now the next thing is, you have to establish certain mechanisms that are going to improve the way the team members and find the information. What do you mean by that? Let me go back and explain it. Establish the mechanisms. You need to find certain ways, certain mechanisms that may allow you to find the information in a much more easier way. For example, every day you are going to hear my lectures, on the online class, yes or no, right? So while you listen to my lectures, you are going to have a notes with you, you are going to carry out a book with you, you are going to carry out a pen with you, you are going to carry out a eraser with you, pencil with you, and scale with you. Suppose, if you keep them, all of them together within a rack or within a cupboard, within one place, at one place, it becomes very easy for you to find those things. Otherwise, if you keep your book at somewhere, and if you place your pen in somewhere, etc., etc., it becomes very, very difficult for you to find them. Similarly, in the same fashion, you need to establish certain mechanisms that are going to improve the way in which information can be found. Now we are going to see about the next one. That is, you are going to ensure that testing finds as many errors as possible. See, what is the main intention of testing? The main intention of testing is to find as many errors as possible or to uncover as many errors as possible. That is the main intention of testing. So testing, you should always do the testing activity with the intention of finding as many errors as possible. Now the sixth example, all these examples that I am going to cover under one principle of lean, and that is eliminating extra things, means eliminate the waste. Okay. Now the sixth one, what we are going to see is, you have to reduce the time required. Okay. You need to reduce the time that is required to request and get a decision that affects the software or the process that is applied to create it. What do you mean by that? See, whenever you are going to develop certain thing, you need to try to reduce the time to deliver that thing. That is the essence of it. Now we are going to have the seventh one. It is a streamline. Each and everything that you do better, you should streamline it. So put it in a correct way. That's what is called as a streamline. Now we are going to see about the next model technique. Till now we have seen about crystal model, we have seen about adaptive software development model, we have seen about dynamic system development methodology, we have seen about Scrum model, and we have seen about feature driven development model, we have seen about lean software development model. Now this is the time for us to see the seventh model, mind you, that is agile modeling. Now what the agile modeling is actually proposed by the Scott Amber. And now they are going to suggest, this model is going to suggest a set of agile modeling principles. Here every model is going to have its own principles, since similarly in the same fashion the agile modeling is also going to have its own principles. We say that it is agile modeling principles. Now what is the first principle? It is saying that model with a purpose. Whenever you are going to design, you always design with a purpose only. Without purpose you should not design anything. So model with a purpose only. What is the second thing? You have to use multiple models. See, if I am having several benefits, we see I am going to take all the 6 models that are prior to it, I am going to take only the advantages of them, and I can try to incorporate them in this model that is accepted by this model. So agile model is saying that you can use the benefits or advantages of many other models into this model, use multiple models. And next one is travel light. See, what do you mean by travel light? See, whenever you are going to have a flow of functionality from one model to the other model, for example, let me explain you in a better way. Suppose that you are going to call a function g from the function f. So f is going to call the function g. See, in functional calling, you may be having a concept called as parameter passing, yes or no, right? You may be passing parameters. Suppose that, let me assume a situation where the function f is going to pass 1000 parameters to the function g. Okay, yes or no? The function f is going to pass 1000 parameters to the function g. How difficult is it to trace out them? So better what you have to do, either you have create a class and put all the parameters within the class, and you pass the class object, create an object for the class and pass it, or you just create an array, put all the parameters of the function into the array and pass the base address of the array as one parameter. So that's what is called travel light. So now if you put all the 1000 parameters within an array and hand over the base address as one parameter is much more beneficial rather than passing these 1000 parameters to the function g. So whenever you are going to travel means what? Whenever you are going to flow from one area to the other area, you always carry light. Okay. Now we are going to see that content is more actually important than representation. See how beautifully I represent, that does not matter, but whether the representation is having any content inside it or not, that is important. See, if I am having to include animations or graphics or any other diagrams, etc., without having any content with them, what is the thing is that to have with this? So content is always going to have more important than representation. Content is always going to have more important than representation. Now we are going to see the next one as know the models and the tools that you create them. Okay, first of all, whatever the models that you are going to use them, you have to have a better understanding of those models. Now you have to adapt locally. Locally means what? Here in Agile models, we are going to treat the customers as one of the part of our team. We don't consider the customer as an external to us. Okay, he is the part and parcel of our team only. Do you get it? So you have to adopt them locally. You have to have a face-to-face conversation with the customer locally. Now we are going to see about the next process model called as Agile Unified Process Model. See, Agile Unified Process is going to adopt a serial in the large and as well as iterative in the small. We are going to have a serial in the large and we are going to have a concept called as iterative in the small. What do you mean by serial in large means? See, the deployments should be made, the deployments or software increments should be made in a large number and that to be in a serial way, and iteration should be in the small way. The number of iterations should be small, but at the same time the deployments, we are going to have the serial in large deployments. So number of software increments should be large, but at the same time number of iterations should be small. That is the philosophy that is adopted by this AUP. So you see one more time. So it is going to follow serial in large and iterative in the small. Now AUP is going to provide a serial overlay. What do you mean by this serial overlay? A serial overlay can be defined as a linear sequence of software engineering activities. A serial overlay can be treated as a linear sequence of software engineering activities. That's what is called as a serial overlay. What is serial overlay? It is a linear sequence of software engineering activities is called as a serial overlay. Now this Agile Unified Process is going to provide you a serial overlay, that is a linear sequence of software engineering activities that enables the team to visualize the overall process and flow for a software project. Now we are going to have this Agile Unified Process iterations. Each and every iteration of AUP is going to address various activities. One is modeling, second one is implementation, third one is testing, fourth one is deployment, fifth one is configuration project management, fifth one is environment management. Now we are going to have a concept called as software engineering knowledge. See, many software engineering practitioners means programmers, may be thinking of the software engineering as a knowledge that is exclusively as a knowledge of specific technologies. Maybe they may be thinking that software engineering means only programming languages awareness, that is Java, Perl, HTML, C, Linux, etc. But in fact that is not the same. You often hear the people say that the software development knowledge has a 3-year life, half-life, 3.5-year life. What you need to know today will to be obsolete in 3 years. Means what? Suppose that you are very much aware of Python nowadays. After 3 years, you can't say that Python is going to be the leading programming knowledge after 3 years also. So don't estimate that software engineers or practitioners may be always having an illusion that software engineering means having a proficiency in a particular programming language like C, Java or Python, but it is not the same case. Now in the domain of technology related knowledge, that's probably about right, but there is another kind of software development knowledge is there, and we can think as a software engineering principles that does not have a 3-year half-life. Now these software engineering principles are likely to serve as a professional programmer throughout his career. Now principles that are going to guide the process. Now we are going to list out the principles that are going to guide the process. Okay. First one is be agile. Second one is focus on quality at every step. Third one is be ready to adopt. Fourth one is build an efficient team. These are the principles of process only, agile process. Fifth principle is establish mechanisms for communication and coordination. Sixth one is manage the changes. You need to change the manage the changes. Whatever the changes that are made at the requirements design, you need to manage them. Next one is you need to estimate the risk. Next one is create work products that provide value for others. Principles that are going to guide the practice. We are going to earlier we have seen about processes, principles that are guiding the process. Now we are going to see about the principles that are guiding the practice. Divide and conquer is the first principle. Second one is understand the use of abstraction. Third one is strive for consistency. Fourth one is focus always on the transfer of information. Fifth one is build a software that exhibits software modularity. And the principles that guide the practice continued. We are going to have the sixth one as looks for patterns, and seventh one as when possible represent the problem and the solution from a number of different perspectives. Every perspective will be different. User will be having some perspective, and the developer may be having some perspective, management may be having some perspective. So you need to see them as very different perspectives. Then eighth principle is saying that remember that someone will maintain the software. And principles that guide communications are you have to listen always to the customer and then prepare before you communicate, and then someone should facilitate the activity, and then face-to-face communication is best. And the principles that guide communication is continued. Fifth principle is saying that take notes and document decisions. That is the fifth principle. Sixth principle is saying that strive for collaboration. Seventh one is saying that stay focused, modularize your discussion. Eighth one is saying that if something is unclear, then draw a picture. If you want to represent it in terms of text, draw a picture. Principles that guide communication, principle number 9 is saying that once you agree to something, move on. If you agree to something, don't waste your time, move on. If you can't agree to something, then also you move on. Don't waste your time. If a feature or a function is unclear and cannot be clarified at the moment, then move on. In all cases, all three cases, whether you agree, whether you disagree, or if a function is not clear, then also it cannot be clarified further also, then you have to move on. Principle that guide communication is continued. Number 10th principle is negotiation is not a contest or a game. Negotiation is not a game. Don't think that it's a game. It works best when both parties with. See, you have to convince the customer. You need to negotiate with the customer. When both the parties are satisfied, win-win principle, then only we can win. Now, planning principles are understand the scope of the project, involve the customer in the planning activity, and recognize the planning is iterative. Planning is always iterative. Okay, estimate based on what you know. And planning principles number 5 is consider the risk as you define the plan and be realistic. Don't plan in an unrealistic way. It's just granularity as you define the plan and define how you intend to ensure quality. And the 9th principle is saying that describe how you intend to accommodate changes. And 10th principle is saying that track the plan frequently and make adjustments as required. Now we are going to have the agile modeling principles. The primary goal of software team is to build the software, not to create models. Is to build the software is the primary goal, not to create models. Next principle is saying that you have to travel light. The next agile modeling principle is saying that strive to produce the simplest model. You always strive to produce the simplest model. Don't make it complicated. Fourth principle is saying that build the models in a way that makes them amicable to change. What do you mean by amicable? They are dynamic enough. They can be adapted to changes. Now we are going to see about the 5th principle. Be stable. You should be able to state an explicit purpose for each model that is created. 6th principle is saying that adapt the models you create to the system at hand. Now we are having the 7th principle as try to build useful models. Forget about building perfect models. Perfect model cannot be built, forget about them. So 8th principle is saying that don't become dogmatic, okay, about model syntax. 9th principle is saying that if your instincts tells you a paper model is not the right, you may have a reason to be concerned. See, if a model works on paper, it won't works on realistic, then forget about that. 10th principle is saying that get feedback as soon as you can. Where you are going to get the feedback? Let me go back again. You are going to always get the feedback from the customer. Okay. Now, requirement modeling principles, we are going to have the first principle as the information domain of a problem must be represented and understood. Principle 2 saying that the functions that the software performs must be defined. And the third principle is saying that the behavior of the software must be represented. Fourth one saying that the models that depict information, the models that are going to find information or depict information, functions and behavior, they should be partitioned into a manner that uncovers detail in a layered fashion. Now requirement modeling principles is continued. Fifth principle is saying that the analysis task can move from essential information towards the implementation detail. See, after analysis design, then only we are going to have the implementation. So the analysis task should be carried out fine, so that we can move from the essential information toward implementation. Now we are going to have design modeling principles. Design should be traceable. Whatever the designs that you made, that should be traceable to the requirement model. Now principle 2 is saying that always consider the architecture of the system. And principle 3 is saying that design of data is very, very important. And principle 4 is saying that interfaces, both the internal and as well as external interfaces, must be designed with care. Now fifth principle is saying that user interface design should be tuned to the needs of the end user. Sixth principle is saying that component level design should be functionality independent. Now seventh principle is saying that components should be loosely coupled. Loosely coupled means you should always use the concept of interfaces only to one another, to the external environment. And eighth principle is saying that design representations should be easily understandable. Now ninth principle is saying that the design should be developed iteratively, right? So ninth principle of design modeling is saying that the design should be developed iteratively. With each iteration, the designer should strive greater simplicity. Now 10th principle is saying that creation of a design model does not preclude using an agile approach. Now preparation principles we are going to see. Before you write one line of code, be sure you understand the problem, understand the basic design principles, and pick a programming language that meets actually the needs of the software to be built. And you need to select a programming environment that provides the tools that will make you work faster. And create a set of unit tests that will be applied once the component you code is completed. And we are going to have coding principles. Under this, constrain your algorithms by following structured programming practice. Consider the use of pair programming. Select the data structures that will meet the needs of the design. And understand the software architecture and create interfaces that are consistent with it. And keep conditioning logic as simple as possible. And create the nested loops in a way that makes them easily testable. Select meaningful variable names. See, whenever you are going to give variable names, make them appropriately. Give valid names and follow the other local standings. Now write the code that is self-documenting. Create a visual layout. And testing principles. Principle number 1 is saying that all tests should be traceable to the customer requirements. Principle 2 is saying that testing should be planned before testing begins. Third principle is saying that the Pareto 80% principle applies to software testing. Fourth principle of testing is saying that testing should begin in the small and progress towards in the large. And fifth principle is saying that exhaustive testing is not possible. Deployment principles we are going to see. Customer expectations for the software must be managed. And second principle is saying that a complete delivery package should be assembled and tested. Third principle is saying that a support regime must be established before the software is delivered. Fourth principle is saying that appropriate instructional materials must be provided to end users. And fifth principle is saying that buggy software should be fixed first. Buggy means what? The software that is having defects. That should be fixed first, delivered later. Thanks. I hope that you understand what you mean by agile, what you mean by agile models, what are the various types of agile models out there, and what are the various principles that are followed in deployment, that are followed in testing, that are followed in coding, that are followed in preparation, that are followed in modeling, that are followed in requirements, etc., etc. Thanks for watching the lecture.